Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today.
Welcome, Rick.
Hi, nice to be here.
Today we have Rick with us, Rick Partlow. He is a sci-fi, military sci-fi, and a space opera author with over 85 books published. I mean, wow. How do you do that many in, you're 40 or something? Like you've been writing since you were 0 years old?
I wish I was 40. I am 59.
Oh, okay. Well, you've held up very well.
Some doctors might disagree.
Oh.
But I actually have written 83 of those novels in the last 14 years.
Wow. I can't even do the math on that. It's like 5 a year?
I think it works out to 6, maybe.
Okay. That's why I write books, because I can't do math. So,
Yeah, me too. The older I get, the harder it is to do math in my head.
Definitely. Okay. So I'm super excited to talk about, you have multiple series, but I think we're thinking to focus on your Drop Trooper series. You have a release coming out in Barnes & Noble, I heard. So
Yes, today, October 21st, as we record, it is out at Barnes & Noble. And I had my first ever book signing last week at the Barnes & Noble in Jordan Landing, Utah.
Very cool. That's exciting. I just had one in September and it was a lot of fun. Now I want to email all the Barnes & Noble near me and say, can I come to your store?
Yeah, I've thought about trying to get one started in Billings, but the good thing about the one in Jordan Landing was it was me and 2 other authors. So we're more assured of having people come in, or at least one of us. And
right, bigger audience there.
We can bask in the shared glory.
Yeah, definitely a high volume volume Barnes & Noble is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
We'll jump in and talk about the series, the characters, the world. What are we going to experience?
Okay, well, the world of Drop Trooper, which Contact Front is the first of 16 novels. God and Athon and Simon and Schuster only know if all 16 will be in Barnes & Noble eventually, but it's about 300 years in the future. About 25 or 30 years from now, I have a nuclear war between Russia and China that kind of devastates the world, and everything gets rebuilt, and all the cities are abandoned, and they build these mega cities. And one of the biggest is called Trans Angeles, which is between San Diego, where San Diego and LA are right now. Main character is the youngest son of farmers who work in the ruins of Tijuana. And the outskirts are all farms, just subsistence farming. Cannot speak that word. Farming, but the cities are run by gangs. And when his rest of his family is killed by a gang, he winds up wandering through the desert until he's found and taken to Trans Angeles. Goes from one group home to another, eventually becomes a street hustler, ripping off the gangs. And when a gang enforcer is accidentally killed trying to chase after him, he is charged with felony murder and given the choice of go to war or go to jail, because there's a war on with a very dynastic and fierce group of humanoid aliens called the Tani. And although most people on Earth have never heard of it, because Earth is kind of insulated, we're kind of losing it, and we're running out of warm bodies. So they're giving criminals the choice to join the Marines, or face punitive hibernation, which they call the ice box, which theoretically you have a sentence, but in reality they might just forget you're there.
Oh, that's not good.
So he joins the Marines and has to learn to trust people and be responsible for them.
And how old is this character? Does he start out quite young?
Yes, he's like almost 19 when he starts out.
Okay. So definitely an adult read here.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, there's no graphic, not real graphic violence. There's no, the only, sex is, what they call the door closes type of
Closed
sex.
door, yeah.
It's implied,
Yeah.
but it's not. But he's a Marine, so there's a lot of bad language. You can't have Marines without liberal uses of the F word.
Right. So maybe a high school student could pick it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and that would be kind of appropriate there. Fine.
It's not quite young adult, but it starts out when he's a young adult. So I guess
that upper YA new adult coming of age type.
Right.
And is it written through his point of view, or do
it's first person point of view. It's funny. I've written many books from the third person and many from first, and it's funny that the first person books always seem to do better.
Huh.
I guess
I think it's a skill to be able to write both, I think, because I write first person. I have a hard time doing that third person jump. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, what is kind of the norm in sci-fi? Is it normally third person?
Military science fiction is normally third person, but
okay.
I write what comes easier, and I do better with first person. So
right, yeah, and maybe people are loving that up close, get in the person's head, know what they're thinking, feeling, their motivations, and that makes it more of a personal story, maybe.
I find the weakness of a lot of military science fiction is the clinical, maybe analytical nature of it. It seems like a lot of vets write it, so they want to tell the story from like the 1,000-foot view of a battle, but
right.
I think that people appreciate more getting inside someone's head and the gut feelings they have when rounds are coming their way and they're in the mud thinking they're going to die.
I can't even camp, so I would not be cut out for any of this. Like, I need a shower. So how much sci-fi is this? Do you think it's considered hard sci-fi, or is it more of a soft sci-fi?
I have a technological baseline that I go from, that's in my head, but he's a Marine, and he's a 19-year-old Marine, so he doesn't need to know the science, and he doesn't really. I think in the second book he finally finds out how their faster than light drive works, because he needs to, because they keep getting killed heading for the planet. So he wants to find out more about it. But no, you don't. It's not hard sci-fi by any means.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and well, it sounds like, yeah, if he's not running the ship, then he doesn't need to know how it works unless, he comes to not wanting to die, then that's kind of important. Yeah. And you said you have a military background, correct?
I was in the Army, in the infantry, back when I was commissioned when I got out of college. And before that, I was in the National Guard while I was in college.
Okay.
In the Infantry National Guard.
So did you draw a lot of these storylines or thoughts, feelings, perspectives from your experience?
Some. I also have lots of family and friends who are in the military. My father was in World War II, so I have a lot of his stories to go on. A couple of my brothers-in-law were in Vietnam. Most of my friends and some of my family was in the Afghanistan or Iraq, and my closest friend was in both. So actually, my son is overseas right now. He's in the National Guard, and this is his second deployment to the Middle East. He went to Syria. He went to Syria in 2018. So
yeah, well, I thank you for your service, for your son's service, and your family's service. Thank you very much. We definitely appreciate that. And did you always know that you wanted to write? When did you decide, hey, I'm going to start writing this?
I tried to start writing when I was about, I think, 9, because I've been reading a lot of Robert Heinlein's juveniles, and I really loved them, but all of them were written like in the 40s and 50s, and weren't a lot of people writing them anymore by the time. I mean, this is like the 70s, so I was, the 70s was a morass of very nihilistic, navel-gazing sci-fi. There wasn't a lot of stuff like Heinlein's juveniles back then, so I wanted to try to write something like that, but I was 9, so everything I wrote was kind of sucked. But I tried.
Well, to a 9-year-old, it probably didn't.
Now, even at 9, I knew this wasn't as good as the stuff I was reading. But I mean, I've been reading, Heinlein, Clarke, Asimov. Asimov and Clarke were just a little bit higher level, and I don't know if I got all that when I was a kid, but I was entertained by it, and I wanted to write something in that vein. So even back then, it was like it was old-fashioned sci-fi. So I started trying to write then, but it wasn't serious. I never thought about writing a book. I was trying to write some short stories. In the 80s, what really got me back into science fiction and wanting to write it was the cyberpunk science fiction that started in the 80s, really with William Gibson, Walter John Williams. I'm having a brain fart. Who's the guy who wrote? Well.
I'm wondering if Dean Koontz kind of falls into that cyberpunk. No, not really.
Dean Koontz is kind of like, some of his stories have a science fiction tinge to them, but they're mostly horror and thrillers.
I guess the one I read, it was about AI. They didn't call it AI at the time, but it was computers basically taking over the world.
Yeah, well, that's been around. Neil Stephenson is the guy I was trying to think of. Sorry. Okay. That's been around, since like Colossus, the Forbin Project, the whole idea of computers taking over the world. And it by the time he wrote that, I'm sure it had become like a horror trope. And I mean, it's still a science fiction and horror trope. I've always thought it was unrealistic, because if you actually had a thinking computer, people make the mistake of assuming it would think like a human being, but really it would be totally different. And I doubt it would have any interest in ruling humans. I think the most likely scenario, if we actually come up with a thinking sapient computer, is that it wouldn't want to talk to us, won't have anything to do with us. It's like, you're weird, and I have nothing in common with you.
Yeah, I don't understand why you're mad or glad or happy or sad or any of those things. But back to military sci-fi. Sorry, we were going down the wrong lane there.
But I digress.
So what was the first book or series that you wrote?
The first book I wrote was actually when I was 16. I wrote a very ham-handed and bad, what they called back then men's adventure, like Mac Bolan and the Survivalists and all that stuff. I was reading that in the 80s, so I wrote one like that with a bunch of mercenaries and CIA agents and all that stuff, and it was horrible. But that's the first one I wrote. The first one I wrote for publication was called Duty, Honor, Planet, and I actually self-published that in 2011 when I first started self-publishing on Amazon. And then later on, when I got a contract with Athon, they reprinted that. So it's a trilogy. That's the first one I wrote. Second one was Birthright, which is ironically the second book now in the Birthright 4-book series, because I wound up writing what do you call it?
A prequel?
Prequel, thank you. Prequel to it. And when Athon republished that series, they put the prequel as book 1.
Oh, okay.
So now it's a 4-book series, and the original book is book 2.
So what book number are you on Drop Trooper? You're on 16 now,
Oh,
right?
it's finished at 16.
Oh, okay. It's finished at 16. And how does that work in the series? Is it like continuing like
It's
in time
four
or?
book story arcs. The war he's fighting, the war against the Tani, ends in book 4. And then originally there were only going to be 4 books. Actually, originally only be 3, but then I said I think I need 4 to finish the war, and they're like, okay. But it did so well when it was originally released on Amazon that my publisher said you're going to keep writing it. So I kept
Come up
writing
with
it.
some new storyline, right? Please.
Yeah, so I wrote another story arc between books 5 and 8, and then another between 9 and 12, and then 12 and 16 was the final one. So it's in the same universe as about 45 or 47 other novels.
Okay.
It's the same universe that started with Birthright, but you don't need to have read any of those to read this one until you get to book 16. When you get to book 16, it would help if you read this one other series between books 15 and 16. But by then you should be, so if you're reading book 16, you probably wouldn't mind.
Right, yeah. You're into it by then. You're committed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
But
a
if you
series
don't
like
if you don't have any interest in reading anything else, just read books 1 through 4, because that's the war story. It has a closure that would be very appropriate for the end of the series if you're not interested in going all the way to 16.
Well, I find if I find an author that I like and I like their books, I usually just keep reading all of their books. I mean, I don't know if everybody does that, but I usually
That's the
do.
kind of reader we all love.
We all love them. Of course. Unless they do something really weird and I'm like, no, I just can't anymore. But see, well, I like that you have like that 4-book story arc because I mean, a lot of times I've read series that went to look like book 13, 14, and then like it what didn't even look like where it started. Like it was just rambling into nothingness as far as the story arc or story plot seemed to be. And I didn't like that. Like I was like, well, this has nothing to do with the first book. I want some I mean, if it's just like a series, like kind of urban fantasy, they're catching the next bad guy or supernatural, that's fine. I mean, that's what that is, right? But if you like start somewhere with some major problem and some unknown antagonist or some antagonist, like I want to see what happens to the antagonist. I don't want to be like flung out into the universe.
I can pretty much count on one hand the number of series that I've read past, say, 6 books. At some point, either they take it off in a new direction that I don't like, or I just kind of lose interest, because I have to admit, I don't like writing more than 6 books in a series, because this is like the kind of thing that you get when you're a writer in fiction, but you feel for your characters and you're like, how long does their suffering go on? Can't they just rest?
Right. No, I feel the same way. Like I had to stop because I was like, I have to give this person a happily ever after. I could never go back to them because I've made too many bad things to happen. So in like the second arc and the third arc and the fourth arc of the series, is it a different main character? Or are we still
No,
seeing
it's the same main character.
Same main character. So you put him through 16 books still.
And the problem you run into is that eventually when you're telling a war story, people have to die. So eventually you're going to run out of people close to him that he cares about that die. So that's when you really, that's the time to end it. You have to end it before that, so you don't strip everything away from him. But
well, okay, just please tell me you left him with one person at least. Okay, that makes me happy.
His love interest from book 1 is with him all the way through book 16.
Aw, that's sweet. Okay, so you do have a little bit of a love plot there, a romantic plot.
It is not romance. I make that clear when I talk
about it. No, I didn't say romance.
I know, but I mean, it's not that the book is not romance, but their relationship is not what you would consider like fiction romance, like, you know, the meet cute, the misunderstand, that none of that happens. It's all just a straight relationship, like a realistic one that real people would have, you know.
Okay.
So
Sometimes people meet each other and fall in love. That happens, but that's okay.
You know, it's funny because when I wrote my first series for Athon, the main character has a relationship, starts in book 1, and the publishers were like, yeah, but it happens too fast. You know, they need to like be at odds and butting heads through a couple of books. And maybe then in the third book, they kind of kiss, but something comes between them. Like, dude, no, I'm not writing a romance. And I'm writing a real relationship. When I met my wife, I knew within a month that I wanted to marry her. And then the publishers were like, yeah, it's pretty much that way with my wife too. And yeah, it's like, I'm not writing a romance novel. This is real people.
Yeah, and especially if you're writing sci-fi and military sci-fi, I mean,
Yeah.
you could have like a subplot of that relationship and have them have that relationship, but you don't need drama in that relationship
No.
because you're going to be taking away from the main plot of your story, right? Because that's not what your story is about. So I think
Sometimes in my space opera, which is less gritty, I will have will they, won't they situations, but it's space opera, you know, it's like Star Wars type deal. It's not like a military story where you're trying to make at least the military parts of it seem real, even if the science fiction doesn't.
right. Yeah, I think you're on point for that with the people that want to read those books, right? So you have to stay true to your genre.
Not
So
that space opera isn't fun. I enjoy
no,
space opera.
yeah, space opera is great. So talk to me. The other one that caught my eye is Archangel or Archangel. I don't know if
Archangel, yeah.
Archangel.
Archangel is a story. It's a separate universe entirely. It's a story of a retired commando, like a special operator in the military of the coalition government, who finds out well after his retirement that he was fighting on the wrong side in the war, and that the war was orchestrated by people on his side who were like in military intelligence and their equivalent of the CIA, and also this corporate monopolistic organization called the Consortium. It was done to keep control of this, basically a slave race of genetically engineered species that can operate and work on planets that are hostile to humans. And they were created to help terraform planets faster, because Earth had been rendered uninhabitable in a war with AI, actually, which I know the story of that also may not be what he thinks it is. He just heard the history, but it doesn't mean it's real. And they've been terraforming planets and, you know, spreading out through them, but it took a long time. It was a very time-consuming process, and it's very labor-intensive and expensive. So they created this species so they could like live on the planets before they were actually terraformed, and they wouldn't have to build them, you know, pressurized, climate-controlled, you know, facilities to live on. So, but they rebelled. You know, they didn't want to do this anymore. They were, you know, they felt like they were condemned to do this forever. So they then there was a political support for them to be emancipated. So these people faked them striking the coalition in order to justify a war that would allow them to be enslaved again. So he finds out about this and loses his family when they come to try to, you know, eliminate him, and that gets him, you know, fighting on the right side of the war.
Am I hearing like a little John Wick revenge type?
Yeah, I mean, there is that, and there's also the fact that he has a computer built into his brain called the neurosynth that allows him to be I forget the exact term I use for it, but they call it the machine. In combat, it takes control of his body.
Okay.
And it also allows him to learn things that he, by absorbing memories that are recorded and then just squirt into his brain. But what he finds out is that can also leave him with false memories of his own life. So he finds out that some of his memories may not be real, which leads him to, doubt his past and doubt what has happened to him. And that is a big part of the first two books, is him trying to figure out what reality is and what was the lie.
Wow. And how many books are in that series?
There's 4 right now. I am working on the 5th currently.
That one sounds really intriguing. And is he the Archangel? Is the main character that Archangel?
Archangel was the name of the commando unit that he was in.
Oh,
They
okay.
were called the Archangels, and they all had code names like based on Archangel. So his real name is Brent Parthett, but he was called Michael.
Okay.
And his best friend was Castiel, and then there was another guy that was Raphael. That was like part of the top secret part of it, because nobody's supposed to know the real names.
Right. Naming conventions.
Yeah.
Neat. Yeah, that would I base my witch books off the Archangels, so that kind of like caught my interest, but obviously not really related to what you were talking about, but that's okay. Well, thank you so much, Rick, for being here and talking about some of your books. Maybe next time you can come back and talk about a different series. And also thank you for being here right after your surgery and trekking through with the brain fog, probably.
Oh, I'm okay. It's just mostly discomfort and the inability to use my right hand to do all the stuff you do with the right hand. Like
Yes.
eat and brush your teeth and write.
Yes, that would be inhibitory. Well, thank you.
I'm very thankful to my wife for taking dictation while I look over her shoulder at the laptop, because that's the only way I can dictate.
That's a big job. Yes, definitely thank her for us too. Tell everyone where we can find you and your books.
Okay, the easiest place to find me is go on Amazon.com, look up the author page for Rick Partlow. I am the only Rick Partlow who writes science fiction on Amazon, so that comes in very handy. That's going to list all the books that are available. All but a couple are available as audiobooks as well. So if you like audiobooks, they're all there. Except for I think there's 3 out of 83 that aren't available yet, and 2 of them will be. I have, like I said, about half and half military science fiction and space opera. And I have a little something for everybody, I think. There's lighthearted stuff. There's, grim military science fiction. There's spy thrillers with science fiction spy thrillers. And that's the best place to find them all. I also have an author blog on rickpartlow.com, but I don't go there a lot. If you want to engage with me, the best place is to go to Facebook, to the Science Fiction Worlds of Rick Partlow. And if you message me or, post there, then I will answer.
Well, great. Thank you so much for that. And we will have all your links in the description of the show so people can find you there too.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hope you'll come back next time.
I'd be honored to.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Tricia Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.